Hello everyone, hopefully you can see and hear me. It's been a bit of a stress setting up this. I mean, you know, that never happens on BlackBox, does it? Work finished late and, well, for lunch. And yeah, I was trying to put things together. Hopefully all is good. Hopefully you noticed a new sting as well. Just me in that one. For if Mark ever drops out, we can not be reminded about the Godfather. We can just have me on the stream as well. Hopefully is everyone good. Hello to everyone in the chat. Thank you for joining me on this Wednesday at lunchtime. Sebastian Bornaz, hello. Leo is good. Yelena's in the chat. Hello to everyone. So what are we going to be talking about today? Well, there's 2 days before the season starts. I don't know about you, but I am not prepared for it at all. I know there's lots of content creators out there at the moment saying they're locked in and, you know, saying all this kind of stuff. I could go in so many different ways. And what I really wanted to do kind of with this was look back at some of my kind of previous drafts and then look at what I've created now. And because often the first draft you make, you know, when you see all the prices and you just go with your gut and you don't get swayed by all the noise on Twitter and Scout and everywhere, often that first draft can be, you know, really useful and maybe even some of your best work. So I've got a history of my drafts that I've kind of been seriously considering this season. So we're going to go through those, and I've got 2 drafts to show that I'm currently on. One, you'll be disappointed with me with. I know you will. It's my current setup. If you've been watching BlackBox, you've been listening to my streams, my content, you know, I've been going on and on and on about Havertz. Wasn't impressed with the Community Shield. Didn't like the false 9. I've been saying false 9. I don't want him there. He's not a good false 9. He's too annoying to watch in those chances, too close to the penalty area. I want to see him in the 8 role, making runs into the box. I hope to see Trossard play up front. He didn't. So current draft, no Havertz. I'm sorry, but he's not in the current draft at the moment. We'll talk about why when we get to it. But some good news, and a ray of hope is that I also decided, for a bit of fun, I'd put together a Salah draft. And João Pedro emerging with the penalties actually makes actually makes Salah a little bit more viable, I think. Still, I've got Brighton on the brain. So I've got a Salah draft, and it's got Havertz in it. So there's hope. Don't rule him out yet. He might end up in my team. Thank you, BJN, for the super chat. Really appreciate that. I will deal with that. Well, it's Steele over Bruggen, so we'll talk about that as we go because Steele was in my draft. So nice, easy one. Has ease in my team. The other thing at the end of this stream, we'll be doing a new feature on these. I don't know if anyone has been watching my team selections on Scout. I've now moved them over to BlackBox for this season. Wanted to make them a bit more kind of interactive. And also, if you saw the tweet, when Mark and I did The Apprentice this year, we had quite a few messages from people who kind of already play FPL and wanted to kind of join us for whatever reason for some advice to their team, but they didn't quite meet the criteria. But I got chatting to a guy, Ryan. He's played for quite a few years, never finished above 500k. So I thought a bit of a project for me on this stream and also everyone watching is to maybe help him try and get from 500k to 100k. So at the end of every stream, he's going to send in a short video just with his dilemmas and we're going to talk about those. And there's a few reasons for it. I think it's quite an interesting project. If we can actually help someone achieve a good rank, it will keep him more engaged. It's a nice community project for us. But also some of the questions he's asking already with his Gameweek 1 team are questions that we need to answer and discuss anyway, and I think that's going to be apparent throughout the season as well. So we'll get to that at the end. Let me know what you think about that feature. Be really interested to know if everyone enjoys it. Obviously, if people don't enjoy it, then we won't carry on doing it. But I thought it would be a bit of fun. And shout out to Ryan as well, who has committed to sending me 38 videos throughout the season as well. So good on him. Right, we are going to start with the first draft. This was made on the 5th of the 7th, 2023. This was the day that the game launched, I believe. And Mark and I were live on BlackBox and we put some teams together. You see, Brighton's kit isn't even right. It's a bit blurry because I had to take it from the BlackBox stream because I couldn't actually find this. So this is the team. This was the first team that I set up. So it was Leno in goal, Trent, Zinchenko and Estepinian. And then Rashford, Saka, Foden, Matoma, Haaland, Jesus, and Ferguson. And then on the bench, it had Andreas Pereira and Mings as well. So that was the first draft that I put together. Looking back on it, I mean, Trent was really popular, wasn't he? He was in everyone's draft at the time. I think I've pretty much set on not going with Trent. I think 8 million is just a bit too pricey for him when we've got the options of 5-5, like Stones, like Chilwell. Shaw, I think, is really good. Estepinion's a good pick as well. I just can't justify that extra 2.5. And even if I had the money somewhere, I'm just not sure that I would be committing to Trent. So Trent is missing from the drafts I'll be showing a bit later, but he was in quite a few of the early ones. Leno was the 4.5 keeper that I first talked about, but I still don't think he's a terrible option. Looking at Flecken, he hasn't really impressed too much pre-season. Brentford have looked a bit ropey. Lots going for Onana. Shaw. Pickford's really popular. I'm still not a massive fan of him. So I don't really mind the Leno pick. He had a good season for Fulham last year. Estepinian was in. His ownership is absolutely massive now. And then in midfield, Rashford, Saka, they've stayed. Foden, I was so keen on Foden right from the start. He's not playing in the Community Shield hasn't really helped his potential. Matoma, interesting that I went with Matoma straight away. He was one of the first players that I picked. Haaland, I had Jesus before he was cool. Everyone got rocking up to him in the end, but I had him right at the early stage. And then Ferguson, who I really thought was going to excel pre-season, but has barely featured. And it does look actually like Pedro is going to be the best option. I am not ruling out Ferguson this season, though. I am going to staple my colours to the mast, is that saying, and say that Ferguson will be an option for us at some point this season. I think Welbeck starts, but I think Ferguson will come in. So that's the first team. I then left it for quite a while. Oh, no, I didn't. No, I'd made another team 3 days later. Okay, ignore that. The later bit's coming in a sec. I made a second draft a couple of days later. This was a bit more thought involved. So Flecken came in for Leno, kept with Trent, kept with Zinchenko, kept with Estepinian. That was the back three. Rashford and Saka obviously stayed. Foden stayed as well. And this was when Havertz came in for the first time. And yeah, I really did bang the Havertz drum on him. He'd signed from Chelsea. I just got it into my head that I think he's going to be a good option. I mean, if you look at the Community Shield, he had 2 good chances. If he puts away those 2 goals, he's going to be absolutely massively owned. But he didn't, because we know his conversion isn't particularly high. I think it was around 9% last year, and that kind of area of that kind of right near the goal, quick fire, instinct type poacher finish, he's just useless at. So he's better off arriving into the box late and scoring rather than being the man sort of camped in that area. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him, in the first game, because obviously it's Forest rather than City. Forest are going to put 10 men behind the ball. I think they've signed the goalkeeper now. I think he's come in, so they have actually got a goalkeeper. But you'd expect Arsenal to have tons of chances, and there's going to be goals for Arsenal in that game, and it could be Havertz the benefit. So again, he's not completely ruled out. I still don't think he's a terrible option. There's rotation that's happened, but there's rotation with Martinelli. Odegaard was one of the most sub players last season as well. Some people are going for Trossard, but we're not sure what his place in the team's going to be. So Saka is really the only sort of 100% nailed on player in that side. So I'm still standing by it. I'm still standing by the fact that I think Havertz is a decent pick for Gameweek 1. If you need the money and if you're looking at Odegaard, looking at these players, and you want to take that 1 million and put it somewhere else, I still think Havertz is a good pick. Haaland then got the captaincy armband. You might notice in the last graphic, Saka had the captaincy armband. I don't want to come on here and say, I've already done it with Havertz and I might not start with him. I don't want to come on here and say that I'm not going to captain Haaland, because I probably will. But I'm tempted by one of Rashford or Saka. I really am. Haaland's... there was a really good post about Haaland talking about his points. His hat-tricks all came at home. His biggest hauls all came at home. And there was a drop-off in City's kind of way in which they played and score goals away from home, because they were more compact and just blew people away kind of at the Etihad. Interestingly, though, Haaland's stats didn't decrease substantially when he was playing away from home. So the chances were still there for him. It just looks a bit worse because maybe he didn't take them so well, and City won't score as many goals. So I don't think that Haaland is necessarily an awful option away from home or anything like that. Don't get me wrong, he's playing a newly promoted team. They beat them 5-0 in the cup last season as well. It was a poor performance from him, I thought, in the Community Shield. And City in that final area looked like they were really struggling. But they're playing Burnley at home in front of a big crowd. They're going to get chances, and I think Haaland will stay my captain. But given everything that's going on with Wolves at the moment, the Petico leaving, the players they've sold, I just think they're going to really, really struggle this season, and it's a really tough game going into that Manchester United Old Trafford match. So Rashford is tempting. Saka obviously with Forest, big decimated really with injuries, particularly at the back, losing the goalkeepers. I think he's an option as well, but it will probably be Haaland. But I hope there's some people that do kind of risk it a little bit, because I don't think there is a huge amount in it. And if I genuinely thought there was a lot, there was a substantial amount in it between them, I probably would take the risk. But I think given this at Fest as well, and I want to, imagine how Haaland scores a hat trick and I'm at Fest. It's just going to ruin my night. So yeah. Anyway, that's that. Gakpo came in for Jesus. I was really really hot on him as well. Interesting to see his roles slightly changed in the Liverpool team. He's moved into maybe more of a midfield type role. And that's kind of let all the other attacking players come into the team, other than Darwin, of course, because he's hopeless and he couldn't hit a barn door. But that's kind of tempered the buying of him. I still think Gakpo is a really good option. I really like Gakpo and Jota at the moment. Diaz as well on the left. He's had a fantastic pre-season too. So I don't think the Liverpool assets are necessarily terrible. I just think if Gakpo's going to be playing in midfield and he's classified as a striker, he hasn't got the pens. His minutes might be up. But he's got that kind of that maybe more withdrawn role. Maybe it's better to go for Jota, for example, in midfield, who's a little bit more, to be fair, and takes up a midfield spot, but will be kind of the focal point of the attack when he does plays. I don't know. It's a really tricky one knowing which one to get, and in all honesty, I think given the difficulty in the fixtures for Liverpool, I think a bit of a wait and see approach. Can be said, because you could go for Jota, you could go for Gakpo, you could go for one of them just to try and target that Bournemouth game, and then you get Darwin and Gakpo gets a hat trick or whatever. So at least we can see. The caveat to that is Salah, who has just been absolutely incredible pre-season, looks well up for it, and with penalties as well. He's someone that I think we do have to consider. And Mark is being a nightmare with Salah because he keeps telling me more and more things about him, which make me want to bring him sort of into my side. So that's why Salah is being considered, and we'll talk about a bit more about him a bit later on in the stream. Interesting that Destiny Udogie came in. I was quite hot on him for a bit. I think the problem with me and what I've learned from looking at these drafts is I get excited about a player, and then as soon as everyone else gets wind of them and starts bringing them in, I'm like, nah, I don't want them anymore. Happened with Jesus. It's happened with Gakpo. It's happened with Udogie as well. I don't like players that have become bandwagons, and I think that's it's probably an error in my game really. So yeah, fairly interesting to do this. Right, so now we had a bit of a break. So then we came to the 24th for the 7th. So we had a couple of weeks here where I didn't make any changes, interestingly enough. And again, I didn't really make a huge amount when I looked at this draft as well. Onana came in, he signed. I thought he was looking really good at Man U. Trent survived, Gabriel and Estepinian, Rashford, Saka, Foden, Havertz, Matoma, Haaland, Gakpo. So it's only really Onana that kind of came in to this side and maybe changed things around a little bit. But yeah, fairly consistent. So basically for the whole of July, I was kind of fairly recorded. Tom, is this a pre-recorded stream? No, of course it's not. We're live. Hello and welcome. Give me a shout if you're enjoying it. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel as well. Come on, Tom. All this chumps to the chat thing. Of course it's live. As if I do a pre-recorded stream for you. Terrible. So yeah, nothing really changed there. Team 4. This now things changed a little bit more. I believe this was on the 1st of the 8th, about a week later. Steele came in, interestingly enough. So that answers the first super chat that I had on this stream. I do think he made an absolute howler the other day. It was awful, but it doesn't feel very lively. Well, I'm sorry it doesn't feel very live. Well, if you want to ask me some questions, I will take as many questions as you want. I'm just going through my teams currently, happy as anything. But yeah, if you want to ask some questions, then feel free. So Steele comes in. Chilwell comes in. I think this was quite a big change in where my thinking was started going, because I watched more of Chelsea playing in pre-season. And I just thought he looked absolutely brilliant. The fullbacks are pushing on so kind of much in that attack, and Chilwell looks great. He's on set piece as well, and I just thought, yeah, I've got to have him with Chelsea's fixtures kind of coming as the way they are. Shaw came in as well. I'm debating him and kind of Stones too, but Shaw was in for that, and then Gabriel. And then, look, I mean, everything else was kind of not that much change. Rashford, Saka, Fernandes, Havertz, I kind of had those four, and Foden as well, Haaland. And then Watkins came in too, who again is someone, like I said a second ago, he's someone who I was really, really hot on. Everyone was slating him. And then everyone starts buying him, and now I don't want him anymore. Terrible. I don't know if anyone watches Scrubs. It's like when JD wanted Elliot, and then she wanted him, and then he didn't want her anymore. Maybe I'm JD. But yeah, anyway, Watkins is not in the current draft. But yeah, I still think he's a pretty good pick. And then that brings me nicely on to the draft that I've currently got on my team, the draft I'm looking at the moment. So this was after the Community Shield, and it was, I kind of went on that, I went into that game, and I went to Wembley. It was a fantastic match, hoping to get some answers for some of the kind of dilemmas that I was having. And the biggest dilemmas were really about Havertz without Jesus in the team, because I think Jesus out massively impacts Havertz's potential in that side. And I wanted to see about Foden as well, just to kind of get that guarantee that he would start. And then, of course, he didn't, but came on and played really, really well. And it was nice to see that kind of a competitive match between them as well. The other thing that happened on that day, which was very interesting, which I mentioned earlier, is that João Pedro played in a pre-season friendly for Brighton and took a penalty with Gross on the pitch. Now, I thought Gross would keep penalties. He hasn't got the best record at them, but I thought he would keep them until he missed one again, and then I thought Pedro might step up. The fact Pedro came in, scored, I think that shows pretty categorically that Pedro is going to be on pens when he's in the team. I was a bit worried in the previous drafts about not having a Brighton attacker. I think Pedro is a really good option. I think Matoma is still a really, really good option at 6'5" for those first few fixtures, but I think Pedro gives us a little bit more money to play with. And it was actually losing the money from Pedro combined with the role Havertz was playing that gave me the extra million and let me go from Havertz up to Odegaard as well. Foden, he was so good when he came on. I just cannot believe that Pep is going to start a season without him. I think they need his creativity. They need his runs from the middle. They were just so lacking that final killer ball until him and De Bruyne came on. So I would just be amazed. But I just think it shows that he just hasn't got Pep's full trust. Or are we looking too much into it? Let me know what you think about that, because I'm just not sure, and I'm just worried that you're asking for trouble going for him because you're just never going to sure when he does. Mitchell Foster, Foden changed the game when he came on. He absolutely did. He was electric. He was absolutely brilliant. So yeah, tempted. Especially bonus Paqueta coming in. Foden isn't trusted. I mean, if they sign Paqueta, it's an amazing signing as well. But he's more defensive, isn't he, than Foden? I still think Foden is the only real player in that midfield, other than De Bruyne, that can just burst through lines and create chances like he did. He was absolutely brilliant in it. So yeah, anyway, that's why Foden dropped out. And he dropped out, so I had 7.5, so he's dropped out for Maddison. Now, I tweeted the other day because I am a Maddison fanboy. Everyone who's ever watched anything I've ever done knows, as soon as he came into the league, I was all over him. Spurs' fixtures not amazing. Brentford away is quite tough. First game, and then going into Manchester United 2. But this Kane thing is interesting because I think if Kane stays, he probably accepts that he's just going to be at Spurs forever now, and he probably just signs a new contract and just gets on with it. Or he leaves and Richarlison comes in. And I actually think, talking to Sam, talking to other Spurs fans, the way Post wants his team to play, Richarlison actually fits really well into that kind of high-pressing style. And I think either way, Maddison is going to be a big influence on Spurs this season. They've been so desperate for a creative, midfielder ever since Eriksen left. So he's got nearly 20 attacking returns for Leicester in his last couple of seasons. If he can do that again for Spurs, he's going to be brilliant. But it's just whether he does it early, and that's always the question you've got to ask yourself with your drafts. You might have a player in mind that you think is going to have a really good season. Doesn't matter. Did they have a good first 4 to 6 game weeks? That is the only question you should ask. That's why Ferguson's out of my side. That's why I'm debating Maddison. That's why maybe Foden does come into Pep's thinking, and maybe he's the solution to some of their maybe creative problems now that they've lost some key players. But is it going to happen straight away in those first 4 to 6 weeks? That's always the question you've got to ask yourself. So there's a few kind of question marks around that. And here we go. I was wondering when someone would say it. Tim Wilton Davies, Timber. What the hell is Timber doing in your side? Yeah, so Timber's in, and I mean, it is completely based on his performance in the Community Shield. I am not going to pretend I have some amazing insight into how much he's going to start. I just thought he was so good in both halves, but particularly in the first half. He was getting forward so much. It looked like he'd played in that system so often. He was beating players, and I of all the Arsenal players in that side, I was most impressed with him. Second half, he was a bit more defensive, but he was still so good at dealing with a lot of the Man City attacks. And I was watching the Arsenal back line, and I was just so impressed with the awareness that he had, and White had on the other side as well. They looked like they'd been playing together for a long time. So I think he starts the season. And again, it's this question, does he start the first 3 to 4 game weeks? Zinchenko has played, a couple of minutes in a charity game the other day. Like, that's it. That's his pre-season. He is going to need time to get back into that side as well. The first 3 fixtures are so good for Arsenal. I don't think they need to rush Zinchenko back into this. Even if Zinchenko does come back, Timber can play on the right. He can give White a bit of a breather. It might be booking a transfer, as Varmo has just said, but I'm not sure that I want Arsenal defenders for much more than that first 3, because the first 3 is so good, and then it gets a bit tougher. And I think maybe looking at some other options when everyone sticks on to someone like Gabriel, I can use that spot and be a bit more kind of flexible with it. So that's the thinking with Timber. I just want someone in my team who is a bit interesting, and I don't want a team that I look at and I've got the same players as everyone else. And I know that's probably not the way you should play FPL. I'm sure that's not what the experts, there's no experts, no one that calls themselves that. It's not what the best advice would be to someone. But I always say I play this game for fun. And I want a couple of players in my side that I can get a little bit excited about. And I look at this team and I think, João Pedro, okay, he's getting more popular. But if he scores, I can cheer. Maddison, he's not on everyone's team. He's someone I can cheer. Timber in defence. Someone interesting. Steele as well. These are all players who I think, double bright in defence. There's a few just little tweaks of the template here, which I think could, just be a bit of fun. So that's the reasoning behind it. If you've got Gabriel, great pick. Got no issue with Gabriel whatsoever. If you've got Saliba, no issue with him whatsoever. But I just want someone a little bit different, and maybe he misses out, but maybe he scores in Gameweek 1. We just don't know kind of what it's going to be. So at the moment, I'm leaning towards this team. But then I did a bad thing, and I thought, what if I just put a little team together with Salah in it? And I put a team together, and I thought, where's my sacrifices here? So this is the Salah team, right? So it's still Chilwell, Timber, and Estepinian. So pretty much identical back line. Rashford, Saka, Havertz, he's back. Salah and Diaby. So that's a 6-5 mid. That could be in Bomo. It could be Matoma, but I'm tripled up with Brighton on this as well. And then it's Haaland up top, and then it's João Pedro. And then it's a weak bench. Don't get me wrong. Areola, Bell, Baldock, and Mubama. But it's essentially really Fernandes and Maddison. They're the 2 big sort of ones. And Odegaard down to Havertz. And I've already said I think the points could go to anyone in that Arsenal team. So Fernandes and Maddison to Salah and Diaby. I like Salah and Diaby. I think Diaby's an interesting one over Watkins because he's playing a little bit out of position, it seems, from pre-season. Got great sort of underlying stats from Germany, paid big money for him. I think he comes in and does really well. And then Salah over Fernandes. I think it's close between them. Fernandes has got that Wolves game and he's got the minutes as well. But I don't mind this. I look at this team and I don't think... All the other teams I've looked at that I've tried to make with Salah, I think there's been big sacrifices that have to be made. And okay, the bench is weak, but I think Baldock's fine, particularly in the first game and for a couple. Okay, Bell's there, but Bell could be, the Burnley defender. Maybe they start the season strongly. And West Ham is selling, they've just sold Smaka, and I think Obama's going to get some starts. So yeah, this is kind of where it's at kind of at the moment. So if I decide to go with Salah, then Havertz is going to be back in, basically. So yeah. Anyway, let me know what you think about the two teams, because these are the two thinkings, and there is decisions that to be made, and I'm not settled kind of on either of these. And it feels a bit bad doing the kind of clickbait of as his Gameweek 1 team, because it might look different, but it's probably going to be some kind of combination of some of this. So yeah, let me know what you think. Just a shout out to Liesel, who's in the chat that I see. Let me try and find her name, because I've lost it. There it is. She just says, Liesel is my apprentice my Landmarks apprentice. We're not doing split apprentices this season. She's my apprentice for this season. If you haven't watched the beginner's guide that we did with Liesel, do check it out. Really enjoyed doing that. Really wanted to put something like that on the channel as well. I spoke to my mum yesterday, and she said she tried to watch it and fell asleep. During it, she said that it was overwhelming for her. And interestingly, that's kind of what Mark and I said afterwards. It's like it felt overwhelming explaining the rules, and it's a simple game, but once you start getting into double game weeks and chips and scoring, and then into the bonus points, bloody hell, it all gets very complicated. So Liesel's in the chat. That means we didn't completely put her off. So that's good. And obviously, we'll be following how well she does this season. Can she beat Nat? Can she, have a good season as well? So do check out that if you haven't already. Right, let's move over to the watch list. I'll be doing these each week. At the moment, it's pretty comprehensive. I've just put in everyone who I've at least been considering, or I think I want to have some kind of eye on as they go. And what's really encouraging is it's a really big list of players. We start in defence. Looking at all the players, these are all players I think you could realistically have in your team. There's Trent, Trippier, Shaw, Reece James, Chilwell, Stones, Ake, Porro, Moreno, who's injured at the moment, but he could come back in. Zinchenko, Estepinian, Gvardiol, 5. Surely he's going to be a factor for us at some point. Timber, like I mentioned, Botman, Pinnock, Destiny, Adogi, I love his name. Colwill, Creswell, Bell, Bayer, Baldock. These are all decent defence options, and a lot of us are going for the same 3. It's a kind of a Stones, an Estepinian, and a Gabriel. But with Shaw knocking around as well, Reece James could take a penalty in the first game. We could suddenly everyone's going for him. Trent too. I think we could see some kind of early moves on some of these defenders. So interested in that. Coming over to the midfielders. Salah's right at the top. Look at all these midfielders that we can consider. Rashford, Son, Saka, Fernandes. Okay, we've all got probably 3 out of 4 of those. Odegaard, he's being swapped out with maybe Martinelli. Jota, haven't really seen him in too many teams think he's a really good pick. Martinelli, Havertz, Foden if he can cement his start. Maddison, Bowen at West Ham at 7 million, good price. Sterling, Kulusevski, both could have really good seasons playing under much more attacking managers than we've seen them play for before. Gross, Eze, Mbomo, March, Matoma, Mudryk, Diaby, Mbomo. These are all 6-5 million mids. They're all such good picks. You could have any one of those 6-5 millions and do well. Mudryk, I think, is potentially a bit of a dark horse. If he does well against Chelsea, he looks good. He had a good pre-season. If he looks sharp in those first 2 games, going into the run of fixtures that Chelsea have, I think he could do really well for us. Gibbs White as well at Forest, kind of the centre of everything. Okay, not playing for the best team. Sorry, Mark. But the hub, the talisman of that side, just 6 million. I still can't believe he got 14 goal involvements last year. Crazy. And then Anderson. And Anderson I've put in just as a bit of homage really to Mark, because Mark sent me his draft, and you will not believe it, but Anderson, the 4.5 million Newcastle midfielder, was in his starting 11. I know. I'll just leave you a second just to let that drop in. There you go. Anyway, if Mark starts with Anderson, it's going to be very, very interesting. People were saying no Luis Diaz. Yeah, I mentioned him earlier. I do like Luis Diaz. He is someone I want to monitor. I think the only problem with Diaz is I just think that left hand side role is quite there's quite a few options that they can play there. He should be on this list, don't get me wrong, but I think I would prefer Jota or Gakpo. He would probably be the third one I'd pick. Nunes is there and can kind of play in that role. But Diaz is so good. He is so good. So he will be expecting, I think, to start most games. And he should, because I think he's absolutely fantastic. Give us the Mark draft. I don't know when we're doing a kind of a Q&A tomorrow with Mark. Mark's doing 2 streams tomorrow, believe it or not. He's doing one with me and Luke about 11 o'clock or half 11 Q&A. So be around for that if you could take time off work. I don't know, some of you are here, so why not? And then he's doing another one in the evening with Andy, where he's got loads of stats about things. So if you're think you're settled on your team, I think he's going to blow your mind on that. So check that out. I imagine he'll show his draft on that one. You have to wait a little bit of a tease for that. Finally, that's a good one. Magic 69. He might be Mark's starting 11, but not in Eddie House. Imagine if he starts Anderson game week 1, he doesn't play and comes on for 5 minutes. Oh, he's not going to start with Anderson. I don't believe it. And then forwards, again, loads of options up top. Haaland, Kane, if he stays. I hadn't had put Jesus on the watch list, but he's definitely on the watch list if Kane leaves. Kind of waiting for that. Jesus when he's back and fit. Watkins as well, same price. Wilson as well. You know, if anything happens to one of Isak or Wilson, I think we're going to be buying the other one when Newcastle's fixtures turn a bit better. Nkunku, Jackson, interesting player to start the season with, given Chelsea's form. Højlund just signed. Ferguson, I think he's going to come in and smash it. Visser, I think he's a great option. He's got really sharp pre-season. And Pedro. So across all the different positions, there's so many players that we can consider. So yeah, really looking forward to getting started this season and seeing which players shake up the template, because it's a difficult pre-season making content now because everyone has got similar teams, right? And you know, people, you look at people's back lines and you see Estepinian, you see Gabriel, and you see one of Stones or Shaw. You see them in every single person's team, and it gets boring because you're like, come on, this is such a template team. But it is hard unless you're sure that someone else is going to do better. Going for established, cemented picks is a good option to start the season. And I guarantee after game week 1, there will be players on these lists that I've been showing that emerge and look really good and that you want. And then you're going to start seeing the divide between people sticking with their players, taking hits to bring in players they want. You know, maybe Salah goes mad, maybe Mudryk goes mad, taking punts, or going for, you know, established players, you know, that have done well in the past that they then want. So punts, good, you know, it's going to be different. So don't worry too much about this season. I'm looking forward to getting into the into the kind of the core bit of the season, and those first few weeks are so volatile as well because, you know, anything could happen. So yeah, anyway, that's the watch list. Right, now we're going to come over to the 500k to 100k segment. So again, the point of this, as I said earlier, is I had a message from a lovely guy, Ryan, who has played FPL for many years, but he just cannot get past 500k. He is stuck at that rank. So with everyone's help in this chat, we are going to have a look at his team and we're going to try and sort him out. So this is a bit of a longer video from Ryan this week. His video won't always be as long as this, but obviously it's important because it's the first draft. So I am going to send us over to Ryan to chat about his thinking so far.
Hey guys, hope everyone's doing well, ready for Friday, big deadline. Hope everyone enjoys tinkering for the rest of the week because I don't really know what to do. But this is my draft at the minute. Let's run you through it. In goal, we've got Onana and Areola. In the back, we've got Stones, Gabriel, Estupinan, Chilwell and Baldock. In the midfield, we've got Rashford, Saka, Martinelli, Bruno and James Maddison. Up front, we've got Haaland, João Pedro and Lubama. A couple of little notes I've made is with this team that I've got, how do I get to Salah or Trent if they fire? I don't really see a viable way of doing it, to be honest, without taking hits. So that's a point that I've just jotted down. I'm really keen on Darwin Núñez. That Bournemouth victory in game week 2 just looks scary without a Liverpool striker. So whoever's the number 9 is someone I'm really going to be looking at. A big differential that I'm interested in as a big Man City fan, no one else is looking at him, is Kevin De Bruyne. I've not heard much of him spoken about all pre-season really, but he is on my mind. And lastly, in this team, the combination that I've got at the minute of Bruno Fernandes and João Pedro, with the 0.5 in the bank, I can do Watkins to a 6.5 million mid. So which of them two really do I go for? I'm not sure. And if I do that, who is the 6.5 mid. But yeah, hope everyone's ready. Wish everyone the best of luck in Game Week 1, and I'll see you guys next week.
So there you go. That is Ryan. That is the man who we will be helping to get a good finish this season. Lots of good comments about his team. Stick with your gut, go with your gut feeling. Proper pen and paper manager. Oh, you can't see these comments; they're hidden behind the thing. Good team. Not much wrong with that team. Seems pretty template. Quite a few people saying it's quite a template team, which I think it is. Onana in goal. Estepinian, Gabriel Stones, like I said, that's pretty much what everyone's got. Rashford, Saka, Fernandes, Martinelli, Maddison again. He's not in everyone's team. Haaland and Pedro, Chilwell on the bench. It's a strong team, isn't it? Let's be honest. I mean, there's no one in that team that is a weak player. There's Chilwell that can come in, and generally you would expect that team to start the season really, really well. So I like that. Just to go through some of his questions. How to get Salah? I think it's going to be a question that a lot of us ask. After kind of Game Week 1, it's going to be really, really tricky. You're not going to be able to. If you go for a team like this, especially if you've got Chilwell on the bench as well, your main player you're going to want to move up to Salah is going to be Fernandes. But there's 4 million difference. So you're not going to be able to do it in one move. So you're not going to be able to get him in for Bournemouth if you go with this team, unless you wildcard Game Week 1. So if you're going to go without Salah and you're going to put a team together like this, which is strong, has a good first bench option, and is balanced across the midfield, you've got to just accept that whatever happens in Game Week 2 against Bournemouth happens, and the rest of the fixtures, hopefully your players can make up the difference. That's the only way of looking at it. And, should we be building our teams around a player for one fixture in that Bournemouth game? Probably not. But if you also think he's going to do well in the other games around that, like Chelsea haven't exactly been great defensively at the start, then maybe he is someone to consider. But there's no kind of easy answer here, because Salah is always going to be a risk to not own him. That is Salah. He's been a top point scorer, for so many seasons in a row. He just missed out last season, but he is a consistently brilliant player. But the fixtures are against him, so I think if you're going to go without him, like I said, you just have to hope that he doesn't blow up in Game Week 2. And if he does, you have to stick to your guns and not take -8s to bring him in ahead of like Newcastle and Villa or whatever it is. So really, really tricky, but hold your nerve, I think, because you've built this team without him. The team looks strong. I think just don't risk it. Darwin Núñez, I am just such a massive no on this. I can appreciate people, and Ryan wants a striker for that Bournemouth game in Game Week 2. But like I said, there's so many options around that team, and trying to predict the best one just isn't right. And I look at this team, and I think, who would you take out of this team for Darwin Núñez? I guess Maddison maybe for Núñez. I'd rather have Maddison. So I wouldn't be doing that at all. So yeah, I'm not convinced that Núñez is a good option. And I think if you wanted a Liverpool player, it would be easier to move maybe a Fernandes or a Rashford out for a Jota potentially, or a Diaz if he looks good, rather than trying to focus on Diaz as well. KDB, yes or no? I can understand why Ryan wants him. He's a Man City fan. KDB is one of the best players in the league still, but realistically, he's not the same player that he was a few years ago. He's not getting those regular starts in the team. He looked a bit off the ball. I know he did well to kind of set up the goal, but he looks a bit cumbersome, I thought, in that match. So he'll do well, but he's not what I don't think he's better than any of those midfielders you've got in those 5, and he costs a load more money. So you'd have to completely rip things apart to bring him in. And you talk about people not really considering him, and that's why, because no one is willing to risk a rotation option and pay that much money for him. So in terms of punts, I just think if you're going to punt on a Man City midfielder, if you're desperate for a Man City midfielder, why not go for Foden? Why not do Maddison to Foden and then have him in your team? And that's a decision that I'm weighing up, in my side. And if we get news on Friday that Foden starts, I think we're going to see a big bandwagon for him initially. But that is what I'd do, rather than trying to focus on De Bruyne. And finally, Bruno and Pedro or Watkins in a 6-5 mid. I think this is a question that quite a few people were kind of asking ourselves. I think Bruno's a really good pick. I think there's been a few comments in the chat about kind of minutes and is that going to benefit him? It probably will, because he's going to play more minutes than pretty much anyone else, because he doesn't get subbed. He's such a key player for Manchester United, and we've seen him win penalties and score penalties in the last minutes of games. And although I don't think the minutes thing is majorly affecting my decision for players, it does make me favour Bruno a little bit more, just because he's going to get more minutes than pretty much any other player in the league. I can't think of anyone playing for a top side who's going to see more minutes than Bruno Fernandes this season. So I think that massively boosts his appeal. So I would go for Bruno and Pedro. I think Pedro's a good option with pens. And I think, both of those. I think Pedro and Watkins are. I mean, I'd rather have Watkins, obviously, but the 3 million as well, with what you can do with is massive. And the 6-5 mids are nice, but you can easily move to one of those with Maddison down to an Eze or an Mbomo. Ryan's also a big fan of DRB as well. He mentioned to me, so that's the kind of move you can do for that. But Bruno and Pedro for me as well. Michael Johnson, Salah will see the same minutes as Bruno. Yeah, I don't know. Will he? I don't think he will. I think Salah's more likely to kind of get subbed at 75 or 80 minutes or something like that. Bruno doesn't get subbed even if they're winning sort of quite comfortably as well. And there's so many options in that Liverpool attack. I mean, Salah's going to play the majority of games where he's available, but he won't play as many. He won't play as many minutes as thinking. Nice rank history as Jonas. Yeah, not my rank history on the screen. But we're going to turn this around, Ryan. We're going to hit you with a good finish this season. So that's Ryan's team. Hopefully you've enjoyed that. Let me know in the comments if you enjoy that segment. Like I said, it'll probably be shorter, a bit shorter going on in previous ones, just like 30 seconds or a minute from Ryan. And we'll just kind of... Basically, what we're going to try and do is not massively influence him into things, but just gently swerve him onto a path where he doesn't panic as much. Because, Ryan... I think, from my experience with him, he could send me this team and then come Friday night, De Bruyne's in, right? But I'm hoping that if we have this, then we can just kind of delicately say, no, Ryan, you don't need De Bruyne. You've got a good team. Let's just stick with it. So, yeah, we will see what happens with that too. Fest. Shout out to Fest. Hopefully, I will see many of you watching this and listening to this at Fest on Friday. It'll be a really, really good night. Starts at 4. It's in Waterloo. You can still get tickets now, 25 quid. There's comedy. You get a free drink. Mark and I will be doing something. I'm not entirely sure what, but we'll be doing something on a stage, maybe. I don't really know. We'll be sort of answering questions and chatting through our teams. You can come and ask Mark why he's got Anderson in his side as well. There's a quiz, which is always brilliant. And yeah, the deadline, in a room full with 200 FPL managers is obviously absolute carnage. And if you're worried about kind of, coming along and you don't know anyone, I say this every year, but the first fest I went to, I remember going into the main room and there was about 8 or 9 people all sat on kind of different tables, all kind of on their own, looking a bit kind of awkward. I left the room, 5 minutes later came back in and they'd all got together on one table and were all chatting. Like, you will just meet people. And if you think about the amount of things you can the amount of things you've got in common talking about football and fantasy football and stuff, you will just have a great time. You'll meet people, and people who go and are really nervous about going, every single person I've said has said they're glad they went and they've enjoyed it. So do go along, say hello to me. We can have a chat about anything. If you're ever feeling worried or anxious or anything, just come grab me and I'll introduce you to people and we'll have a chat as well. So yeah, do come along to Fest. I'm really looking forward to it, and it's genuinely, it's always a highlight kind of my year of these fests, because it's just a really good laugh. I think that's about it from me. Then hopefully you've enjoyed this stream. I'm sorry that it started off a bit late, but hopefully you've enjoyed it. I'll be doing these every week until the end of the season, hopefully, so you can track my progress. My rank will be on the screen. I won't shy away from it. I'll be doing these, no matter how badly I'm doing. I did last year. It was painful, so hopefully it'll go a bit better than last year. Do give us a subscribe on the channel as well. Mark and I are really keen to kind of push up towards sort of 40,000 subscribers this year. Do give me a like on this video if you've enjoyed it as well. And I will see you all at Fest, hopefully. Have a good one.